One of the most important things you must have to win a championship is having a good head coach. Some teams have it and some teams not so much. So in today's video, we're going to be tier listing every single head coach in the NFL. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're new and going to enjoy. Let's have some fun. So as you can see, our tiers today are going to be elite head coach, good head coach, decent head coach, poor head coach, horrible head coach, and too early to tell. Too early is probably just going to be for like rookie head coaches or guys who, for whatever reason, just haven't had a lot of time to coach. With that said, we're going to start with the Washington Commanders head coach in Dan Quinn. This is a tough one because I think if you had asked me this question just a few years ago, when I got a few years ago, 2 years ago after 2024, you're talking probably good to decent head coach. But last year, some of the things didn't really go this team's way, and obviously the team had a disappointing season. I don't think you could put all of that on Dan Quinn, though. There was a lot of injuries to this team, and again, if you're going to blame Dan Quinn on that, I don't think that's really justified. That all said, I'm going to put him in decent head coach. I have a feeling that he'll probably be towards the back end of decent head coach. I mean, he's had a lot of experience being a head coach in the NFL, obviously with the Atlanta Falcons for several years, then went to Dallas as a defensive coordinator, and now is obviously brought back as a head coach for the Commanders. And he's been a little up and down, but I would say that he still brings a lot to the table as a head coach. Good personality, good culture builder, good defensive mind. We'll see what he can do this year, but for now, he's going to be in the decent head coach section. All right, next up is Robert Salah, who technically is a rookie head coach for the Titans, but we have obviously seen Robert Salah coach for the New York Jets for several years, and then last year went back as a defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers, and I mean, had a great defense despite all the injuries. This one is super tough because honestly, like based on the record that he put out there with the New York Jets, I mean, you're talking about horrible to poor head coach. But at the same time, we know just how good of a defensive mind he is. And we also know that with the New York Jets, he was able to put together some really good defenses, just was never able to find the quarterback to keep that offense afloat. So I'm going to put him in poor head coach, but I will say that I actually still have a lot of faith in Robert Salah to be honestly a good to maybe even elite head coach with the right situation. The New York Jets were an absolute just disaster for most of his tenure there, and it wasn't really his fault. It was more so the personnel decisions by potentially Robert Salah, but also the front office there. And then, of course, the whole Aaron Rodgers saga and all that stuff just never quite worked out for him. I'm going to put him in poor head coach because so far we haven't seen him prove to be a good head coach. But Titans fans who are watching this, I think Robert Salah was an excellent hire, and I'm very excited to see if he can end up rising up the boards here. All right, next is Todd Bowles, and I'm going to put him also in the poor head coach section. Now, I think he is heavily on the hot seat. I still do think Bowles does bring some good things to the table. I do think, generally speaking, he's a pretty good defensive mind. And, I think he brings some other things as well, like experience and, has been on this team for multiple years. But it does feel like the Buccaneers are starting to plateau a little bit and slightly decline in some ways. And I think part of that is just because Todd Bowles has been there for so long. And I just don't think Todd Bowles is this innovative mind that this team kind of needs. And so I think for Todd Bowles, like on some teams, he could be a decent head coach, but he's just kind of like the guy that's on your team for 3 to 4 years. And by the time you get to like the back end of those 3 to 4 years, you're like, I'm ready for this to be over with. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at with Todd Bowles, where he had some good years there. There's a lot of hope and promise, but we're now getting into year 3 or 4 as the head coach. And we're all just kind of like, let's just get this over with. So Todd Bowles is going to be in the poor head coach section. All right, next up, Mike McDonald. He is going to be in the elite head coach section. Obviously, his team just won the Super Bowl. He's one of the best defensive minds out there. But even beyond the defensive stuff, I thought his in-game decision-making was great, knowing when to call timeouts, knowing how to manage the game properly. I just thought he did a hell of a job last year. And obviously, hosting the Lombardi Trophy kind of, displays that level of coaching that you have. So I'll put him up there. Again, another NFC West coach here, but I'm going to put him in elite head coach too. Kyle Shanahan arguably could be in front of Mike McDonald. I'll just put them kind of next to each other. Shanahan, I mean, he's led that Niners team to Super Bowls, not to victories, but has led them to the game. Has consistently been one of the best offensive, if not honestly, maybe the best offensive mind in the entire NFL. And even despite the fact that the guy had his quarterback out for most of the season, despite the fact that his wide receiver is not even there and is going crazy on social medias right now. And despite the fact that he had a defense missing their 2 best players in Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, he still got that team into the playoffs with an 11 or 12 win season. So yeah, absolutely. He's one of the best head coaches out there. And to think 2 off seasons, maybe even last off season, there was some buzz around, oh, should he get fired? And I was like, what are we doing here? So good for him. Glad he's staying there. And the Niners got themselves a really, really good head coach. All right, Mike McCarthy, obviously first year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. McCarthy is one of the more tenured guys in the NFL in terms of years to his name as a head coach in this league. Obviously many years there with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers and, you know, all those guys. And then a couple years, I guess maybe a year or two off, and then went to the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott. And he's one of those head coaches where it's like, is he good enough to elevate you to championship contention? In most situations, not. Unless you just have a stacked roster that is just looking for somebody good enough at head coach. But the problem with Mike McCarthy is when you have a roster that is good to decent to even like really good, he isn't somebody that can elevate you enough to get you over the hump. Look at those Dallas Cowboys teams that were ridiculously talented for many years there, that consistently went 12-5, but always ended up losing in the postseason. A lot of those Green Bay Packers teams were very similar in some ways to the Cowboys, where it's like so much talent, Hall of Fame quarterback, this, and that, but we can't get over the hump. I think with Mike McCarthy, he's just kind of, you know, still kind of a good coach, but not necessarily a great coach. I'm going to put him right next to, ironically enough, his former defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn. I think these guys are going to be paired with each other throughout this video. All right, next is Nick Sirianni. And I think if you ask Eagles fans, they're going to want to put him in horrible head coach, but I think we have to be a little bit objective with Nick Sirianni. He's not an offensive mind. He's not a well, I guess he's somewhat of an offensive mind, but he's not like your offensive coordinator. He's not your defensive coordinator. So he's more so somebody that's going to handle the culture, handle the game, timeouts, the flow of things, some substitutions, things like that. You know, he's ultimately the head boss there. But, you know, at the same time, while yes, he has some issues, and yes, I do think for a lot of us, we question whether or not he is the right fit for Philadelphia. The dude did win a championship. Now, you could say that, oh, he won that championship and he went to another championship because of the coordinators he was on, or he had Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gannon. Like, he's had some really good ones, but it's just tough. You know, it's really hard to say, because you can maybe make that same argument for a couple of these different guys here, where it's like, you take away your coordinators, you're not the same head coach. So I don't know. I'm going to put Nick Sirianni in like the front of poor head coach. He doesn't really bring much to the table. And then you're also having now all these issues with the quarterback and the team and the whole AJ Brown stuff. It's not a great look. And he's also like definitely on the hot seat. Like, if this team doesn't make a deep playoff run, he might get fired. So I'm going to put him right here in poor head coach. All right, moving over to Aaron Glenn. I almost want to put him in too early to tell, because, I mean, yeah, he has a full year under his belt, but that team was just not good in a lot of different ways. And he was just kind of plugged in there and was just trying to elevate a team that by the end of the season was, you know, down to just some god-awful quarterback play. But in that same vein, you are a defensive coach and you led a defense that was really, really bad last year, that for the life of them could not create turnovers. And I think that's definitely not a good look. I don't think I'm going to put too many head coaches in horrible head coach. In fact, I might not put a single one, but I will put Todd Bowles like in the poor head coach, or not Todd Bowles, sorry, Aaron Glenn in the poor head coach. I'll put him right next to Todd Bowles. And I might even put Robert Salah in front of him, but Salah, you know, he's much more of like a to be determined. Aaron Glenn is definitely somebody that has to prove a lot this year. Like, he has to prove that he is the guy that they obviously brought him in to be. They've invested a lot into their future. The roster is a lot more talented. And so if Aaron Glenn goes out there and that defense is not good yet again, and they can't force turnovers and they're losing a lot of games, then Aaron Glenn will get fired, rightfully so. So, yeah. All right, John Harbaugh with the New York Giants. I'm going to put John Harbaugh in good head coach. Obviously, for many years there in Baltimore, he's led competitive football teams. And, you know, he's another one of these guys, kind of similar to Nick Sirianni, where he's not necessarily an offensive mind, but he's also not like the defensive coordinator either. So he's just kind of like stuck in the middle in some ways. And what he's supposed to be is the culture guy, the manager guy. And you could say over the last couple years, he hasn't been particularly great at it. But I do think his resume does speak for itself. The fact that he is able to put together, in collaboration with the front office, of course, but he's been able to put together some really good rosters with some really good talent. He obviously has a good eye for, you know, what the team fits are, what fits his identity and things like that. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how he looks with this New York Giants team. But I also want to be clear that if he has a bad year, he could definitely start to slip down this tier list a little bit. His record, though, speaks for himself. I think that he's done a lot to prove himself as one of the better coaches out there. And so I'll give him kind of the benefit of the doubt here and put him in good head coach, though I think he's probably going to be towards like the middle to back end of this list, but still, I'll put him there. All right, Kellen Moore, pretty similar to Aaron Glenn. I'm actually just going to put Kellen Moore like right in front of like the poor head coach section. Now, Saints fans are obviously going to be a little upset with me with this one, but I just feel like he hasn't shown me enough quite yet. Like, the team was not great. They were, I think, what, 2-8, 2-10, I want to say. I think it was 2-8 at one point in the season. Then they made the change with Tyler Shuck, and then they went on a little bit of a run late in the season, but that run came against some pretty mediocre teams. But I think as the year progressed, you did see Kellen Moore get better, even though it was a little bit weird where it's like, we can't score in our opening drives, we can't score in our opening scripts, but once we're out of script, we can make things work, and that's kind of a big question with Kellen Moore. I don't know. I think Kellen Moore is a great offensive mind. We've obviously seen that. He was excellent for Philadelphia, and I do think his future is very bright in New Orleans as long as they give him the time to continue to work with the quarterback and, you know, continue to grow as a head coach and a personality. But as of right now, like, I can't move him quite higher than poor head coach because I just haven't seen it yet, right? Once we get to the season next year, maybe by mid-season, if we updated this video, he might be a little bit higher. But as of today, it's kind of the same conversation with Aaron Glenn. I just don't think I've seen enough. Though I will say a lot of these quarter or head coaches here are on the hot seat. I don't think Kellen Moore is quite on the hot seat, but yeah. All right, Mike Vrabel, off the field, a lot of questions, but on the field, this guy is one of the best coaches out there. Obviously led that Patriots team, a Patriots team that had no business making it to a Super Bowl, led that team to a Super Bowl. And yeah, I mean, you could maybe make the argument, oh, the schedule, oh, the matchups in the postseason. Hey, man, making a Super Bowl is freaking hard. And Mike Vrabel did exactly that. So I'm going to give him his flowers. Again, the off the field stuff this offseason is not a good look. But it's not like a reoccurring issue, right? This is not like the fifth offseason where Mike Vrabel's had some off-the-field drama. It's not really the case. Like, he had an issue with Tennessee, but I don't really blame him for that. I think that was just the front office of Tennessee being idiots for wanting to let him go. Obviously, the whole stuff with Diana, you got to clean that up. That's not good for yourself, your family, your team. But on the field, the in-game decisions, the way he handles that defense, the way that he just, I mean, he's one of the best out there. The numbers speak for themselves. This was a Patriots team that drafted in the top 5 the year before he got there. Or I guess it was the year after he got there, or before he got there. Drafted Will Campbell, put together a good draft class, put together a good free agency, led the team to a freaking Super Bowl appearance. And you can also look at like the Tennessee Titans for many years there, where Tennessee was one of the worst, teams out there for many years. And this guy led Ryan Tannehill to deep playoff runs. So yeah, give Mike Vrabel his flowers. All right, Kevin O'Connell. I'm going to put Kevin O'Connell in good head coach. I know that Vikings fans are just a little bit frustrated with, I don't know if it was necessarily directed at O'Connell or the team in general. The lack of playoff success is frustrating, but I'm willing to give Kevin O'Connell a bit of a break because I just don't think he's had a quarterback on his team quite yet that is a playoff caliber guy. And I still don't think they have that guy on their roster. But I think what Kevin has done offensively has been really good with the years of Kirk Cousins, the 1 year of Sam Darnold. I think if they would have kept Daniel Jones, they would have had a great offense last year. But that all said, they got to prove it this year with Kyler Murray. I think Kevin O'Connell, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think he'll be given one more year to prove himself, and it'll probably be with a new quarterback. So we'll see about it. But if he does get fired by a team, I think he'll be hired really, really quickly somewhere else, because I think he's a good offensive mind. Jeff Hafley, first-year NFL head coach, way too early to tell. I love this picture here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but he's like a military general. This guy's going to be really interesting. This is either going to be an excellent hire or a complete disaster. So I'm actually kind of excited to watch it. Sean McVey might be the best head coach in the game right now. You can make the argument for any of these guys, to be honest with you. I'll put him in the front, though. I just think that they're going to win a championship this year. And we're all going to look at Sean McVey and say, God damn, this guy just gets it. One of the best offensive minds out there. I know that there was some questions about retirement or things like that, but as long as he's on the Rams, they're in a good position right now, man. All right, Jim Harbaugh of the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to put him in the top of good head coach until he wins a playoff game. I can't quite put him in the elite conversations, but I think as a head coach, like him and Kevin O'Connell in a lot of ways kind of similar, just very different philosophies. But I love his offensive mindset. I love the fact that he just seems to be like a great culture guy. The Chargers just are in a really good spot right now as a team. It's just, we got to find that playoff success. We have our quarterback. We have some pieces on the offensive line. We have some weapons. We have some things defensively going on there. Can we get over the hump, though, and win at least one playoff game. And I think that'll be the big test this offseason. Clint Kubiak, too early to tell. Andy Reid, this one is so interesting because I thought last year he took a bit of a step back. I'm still going to put him in elite head coach. This might just be because I'm just so, like, the career of Andy Reid is so historic and great. But last year, I felt like the magic of the Chiefs schematics kind of wore off a little bit, right? Where the trick plays weren't quite working. There was a lot of just conservative play. The aggression wasn't quite there. But then I'm also like, he had a quarterback that got injured. His tight end is arguably still his best weapon. He's got a receiving core that's lackluster. But you got to work with what you got, and I just don't think that team was particularly good. Maybe a fully healthy team with a healthy Rashee Rice, with Travis Kelce back, with a better running game. I'm still going to give Andy Reid the benefit of the doubt because I just don't think he had the personnel last year to get the job quite done. This year, I think the offense has better personnel with a Kenneth Walker. Hopefully, Rashee Rice is healthy and some, slight improvement on the offensive line. I'll give him that. So I'll keep Andy Reid up here, but another bad year and we're maybe moving him down a little bit, which would suck because I love Andy Reid, but yeah, we'll see. Liam Coen. It's a little too early to start putting him in the elite conversations, but I love the turnaround the Jacksonville Jaguars made last year. I'm going to put Liam Coen right here between Harbaugh and Kevin O'Connell. What he did with Jacksonville last year was quite impressive. I mean, the Jaguars came out the gates and started playing some really good football, despite the fact there were some inconsistencies from Trevor Lawrence, from this receiving core, this, and that. But he went out there and by the end of the year, bringing in Jacoby Myers, made this team like a pretty stable, great football team. And they went into that postseason and they put up a huge battle versus the Buffalo Bills. And, on a better day, they might even win that game. So I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars got themselves a really good mind in that head coaching room. He's just a smart offensive play caller. I thought the way that he handled the games at times was also pretty good as well. Want to see it continue to grow and become even better, but I think so far, like, Liam Coen looks like a pretty solid hire for that Jaguars team. All right, Shane Steichen, this is so tough. Is it crazy to say that it almost feels like it's too early to give a direct opinion of him? I don't think so. I'm going to put him in decent head coach. Now, it's tough because his tenure has been flooded by bad quarterback play. And the 1 year he had good quarterback play, the guy ends up tearing his Achilles, and then they have to rock with freaking Phillip Rivers for a couple games there. But it's like when we got the flash that we wanted to see with him, where everything was clicking, the offense was awesome, Daniel Jones was playing great, they were explosive, they could run the football. And so it's like, man, if you get more of that, Steichen's up here with some of the elite conversations here. Like that's how good the start of the year was for him. But then you kind of get the back half of the year where things kind of wore off and the injuries started to pile up. And all of a sudden this team is struggling out there. So he'll be a decent head coach. He's going to be like right directly kind of in the middle because it's like, please, healthy head coach, please. Okay, Mike LaFleur. I believe that's Mike LaFleur. Yeah, Mike LaFleur. Haven't seen him yet. We'll see. I didn't love the hire, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Too early to tell, though. I'll put Clint Kubiak here. He's the one I'm the most optimistic for. DeMeco Ryans, interesting. I could maybe make the argument for elite head coach. I can make the argument for good head coach. I'm going to put him in, man, this is tough because he's won a lot of playoff games, but he hasn't quite gotten over the hump yet. But you know what? I'm going to put him in an elite head coach spot. You're talking about a guy who's a defensive coordinator and has the best defense in the NFL. Now, yes, they also have a very expensive, talented defense. That's part of the reason why. But you know what? You got to have a head coach or a mind that gets that defense playing at that level, and he's done so. And to his credit, he's turned that Texans team into a contender every single year. I mean, hell, even after that first year, I mean, the team that was drafted second overall and had to trade up for the third overall pick. That first year, they had the rookie year of CJ Stroud. It led that team to a playoff game. I believe they won their wild card matchup too. And every single year, they've been in the postseason since then. And despite the fact the offense has been so bad at times, they've won playoff games. So, yeah, I think DeMeco Ryans deserves it. I think he's done a great job. And I think the Texans defense is the best defense out there. And if they could just get competent quarterback play, they might be the favorites to win it all next year. I mean, maybe besides the Rams. All right, here we go. Matt LaFleur. I hope I got that right. I think this is Mike, and I think this is Matt. I can never remember between the two. Anyways, LaFleur of the Green Bay Packers. We'll just go that route. Man, this is tough. If Packers fans were here, they'd put him in horrible. I'm not going to do so. It is too early to tell for that. Well, it's not too early to tell for that. It's just not true. Hey, he's led this Packers team to a lot of playoff runs. Last year, just the team got flooded with injuries. And that looked like for a time there, like the best Packers team that this guy has had in the past couple years. But then the injuries started to pile up. I'm going to put him in good head coach. I'm going to put him right in front of Kevin O'Connell, but just behind Harbaugh. I think that he does get a lot of crap, but I will say, like, his offense is still very functional. He's got a lot of good players in that team. He's led that team to some postseason runs, and he's had a lot of really good years. And he's kind of similar to O'Connell, where it's like, if you did fire the guy, he'd have probably 5 suitors open for the job immediately. So that's kind of a sign of just how good he is. All right, Dan Campbell, somebody who I think for a time there we would have put in the elite head coach conversation, but I do think last year, I don't want to say he got exposed as a coordinator merchant or anything like that. I don't think that's very true, but I do think that maybe trying to find the word, maybe the mystique, I guess you could say, of Dan Campbell kind of got exposed a little bit just because we sort of realized, by the way, I just realized this should say 2026. You guys know what I'm saying. Anyways, Campbell kind of had like I can't find the word, but like he got revealed a little bit in terms of like when he has Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, this team is unstoppable. But when you don't have Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, all of a sudden this team wins 9 games. So I'm still going to put him in good head coach. I'm going to put him in the top of this list. You could maybe convince me to put him in elite head coach. He is the best coach at building a culture. I think that's undisputed at this point. That culture he's put there in Detroit is amongst the best in the NFL, if not the best in the NFL. He is elite at that. He is an elite motivational guy. He's an elite preparator. Is that a word? You know what I'm saying? He's good at that. He's good at getting you prepared. He, in my opinion, is a pretty good in-game decision maker. Hopefully, he now has the coordinators now to back him up a little bit, and we can start having some bigger conversation. Sean Payton, I will put him in elite head coach. You know, obviously, the turnaround in Denver was a beauty, and those years in New Orleans proved to us that he's an elite offensive mind. And then, you know, obviously with Denver, the first year with Russell Wilson wasn't particularly great, but Sean Payton put his foot down and said, nope, we're getting rid of this guy, and I'm going to go take Bo Nix, a guy that a lot of us didn't even think was a first-round pick, and instantly turned that team into a playoff team. And I mean, they're one of the favorites in the AFC for good reason. So yeah, Sean Payton is continuing to be an elite head coach. Brian Schottenheimer, it is too early to say that he's going to be an elite head coach, but I do feel pretty good about putting him in the good head coach. I'll put him towards the back of good head coach. I can't quite put him over like the Harbaughs necessarily. And I know that might sound crazy, and I know that some might be like, oh, you're a Cowboys fan, of course you love the guy. First off, I'm unbiased here. Objectively speaking, what Schottenheimer did with that offense last year was very impressive. This was the best offense at times in the NFL. I think by end of year, you know, it kind of was up and down at times, but still pretty consistently one of the best offenses out there. Despite the fact there was some questions about Javonte Williams, the offensive line, how would George Pickens fit with things. This offense was explosive. It was dynamic. They scored a lot of points. It's one of the best offenses out there. Simple. Now he has to prove that he isn't just a good offensive mind, but he's also a good defensive mind too. I thought his in-game decision-making was at times excellent, mostly good. Throughout the year, I didn't really ever question Schottenheimer a ton. I thought he was aggressive when he needed to be, but he was calculated and smart with things, so that also elevates him too. But you brought him in to be your offensive coordinator, and I thought he did a hell of a job. Now he has to prove that he can build a whole team with the defense being good too. And I think with Christian Parker, that can happen. In addition to the decision-making, in addition to how good the offense was, I also think Dallas, for the first time, actually has a really good culture setter. Jason Garrett was just kind of, you know, he was a ham and cheese sandwich, if that makes sense. He was unseasoned chicken. You get my point. Mike McCarthy was kind of the same way. A little bit more seasoned chicken because him and Dak had some good relationships and were cool with each other. This guy gets it, though. Schottenheimer understands it. He's cool. They like him. This, and that. Now he has to prove, though, I'm not just an offensive mind. I'm not just a culture guy. I'm not just a decision maker, but I'm also a good team builder, and I can help this defense be one of the better in the league. So, yeah, I'll put him there. Todd Monken, too early to tell. Zach Taylor, God. I feel like it's unfair for me to put him in horrible head coach because the thing you can't say about Zach Taylor is that he has nothing to his name. The guy won an AFC championship and has been to the playoffs multiple times, and I think at times has looked like a really good head coach. But as of late, the team has just not been great, partially because of injuries, but, you know, the roster building hasn't been good. I don't think he really does much for you as a culture builder. Maybe Bengals fans could, you know, test me on that one. I'm not sure. But your offense has been good. It's tough. He's clearly on the hot seat. You got to think he might get fired after the season. I still think he's like a fine head coach. I think he gets the job done. but I don't think he's really been great as of the last couple years, and I don't think he brings a ton to the table. So I'll put him in poor head coach. Ben Johnson, man, I'm going to put him in good head coach. I'll put him right next to Dan Campbell and Harbaugh. I know Bears fans are going to say, oh, he should be an elite head coach. This guy led this team to the postseason, and if it wasn't for Caleb Williams making a mistake, they would have made it to the NFC Championship game. I'm there with you. I think he's awesome. But let's pump the brakes a little bit. All these guys up here are multiple year tenured guys that have proven they can win in the postseason. I mean, McVey won a championship, been to a championship, won a championship, won multiple. DeMeco hasn't, I'll give you that one, but has won multiple playoff games and has the best defense in the NFL. Dan Campbell, multiple deep playoff runs, one of the best minds out there, multiple year head coach. Harbaugh has been to a championship as well, great offensive mind. Ben Johnson's only been there for one single year. He's only been there for 1 year, and it was a great year. But it was a year where it's like, we shocked a lot of people, we surprised a lot of people, we caught some people off guard. What does it look like now in year 2? So for now, I'll put him in good head coach. Again, if he goes out there and balls out, I have no problem putting him right up there. In fact, I kind of want to put him up there, but it's just way too early to tell right now. Dave Canales, I'll put him in decent head coach. I feel like every single year he's gotten better and better and better, kind of like Bryce, but I think he's gotten a little bit like exponentially better to where now I feel like Carolina, if he has another good year, you feel pretty secure about your guy there. Good offensive mind. I don't think that he's really been helped by Bryce at times just because Bryce is a little limited, but I think the roster building has been good. I think the offense, when it's clicking, has been really sharp as well. I think he's a good culture setter as well. I think Canales is somebody to like around there. Joe Brady, first-year head coach, too early to tell. Jesse Minter, first-year head coach, too early to tell, but I think he's going to be awesome this year. This is kind of like my rankings of these new head coaches of how confident I am in them. Minter, I'm the most confident in. Clint, I'm the second most confident in. Brady, I think that Bills team's going to be good no matter what. Todd Monken, I actually have a lot of hope for Monken. Hafley, again, he's going to be awesome or terrible. And LaFleur, I'm not convinced in quite yet. Kevin Stefanski to end this thing off, your new Atlanta Falcons head coach. I got to put him in good head coach. I know if you look at like his record with Cleveland, specifically the past few years, you're not going to be terribly impressed, but the guy's had shitty quarterback play his entire time there, besides like a few years with Baker. And I mean, that's about it. And maybe the little stint with Joe Flacco, but he's won coach of the year, I think twice, has led a Browns team that honestly, probably both times had no business being in the playoffs, led them to the playoffs and was competitive the first time around, not so much the second time around. I just think in the right situation, he's a good mind. And I think with the Atlanta Falcons, I think they should be in for a big year. Quarterback questions out the wazoo, but Bijan, I think is going to be awesome in this system. Kyle Pitts. I do think Tua or Michael Penix, or maybe specifically Tua, are good fits for Stefanski. So we'll see who ends up winning that battle. But yeah, Drake London, all those guys, I think Stefanski, I think he's a good head coach. And there's a reason why he was instantly hired and was one of the more sought after guys the second that he hit the open market. So that is our list. Again, let's say 2026, but you get my point here. Nothing in the horrible head coach. I don't think there is necessarily a horrible head coach out there. And I feel pretty good about this list. I don't think I'm going to make too many changes. You guys let me know in the comment section below there. What do you disagree with? What do you agree with? And if you guys did enjoy, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're on the road to 25K. We're almost there, just a couple thousand away. So hit that subscribe button. I love you guys. Peace.